Okay, welcome along to Get in the Habit with Sue Allsworth.
And David Finch.
And we have a special guest today.
We do.
Yeah.
Hello, we have Helen Shewry from Mindful Personal Training.
Hello.
She is someone that I've had, another person I've had the pleasure to meet during lockdown. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's amazing how many people that we've connected with, I think, through this lockdown, isn't it? And we connected through someone who I know personally, because she lives in my town, and she's actually given me a lovely Indian head massage before lockdown, and she's your aunt, as I found out.
Very handy. She does distance Reiki on me, so that's nice.
It shows that we're such a small world we live in, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's been really nice.
So Helen, we're talking about getting in the habit and everything on these podcasts. So we're gonna introduce that E word, which to a lot of us is a bit of a swear word, I think, isn't it? Exercise.
You. Sue was confessing in the last podcast that we did that she hates exercise, or she didn't particularly like it. Let's put it that way.
There's a lot of people with resistance to exercise. I think it's finding something that you can enjoy, and also knowing, like we always call it training, because we're using it for a purpose rather than just throwing ourselves around. So although you like to do the dancing, don't you? So you can throw yourself around doing that.
Yeah, I don't mind having a moment here in my little womb, as I call it, and putting the music on and dancing, and that's exercise, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But what is it that you, because I know I had a session with you in the beginning of lockdown, and so I could get a flavour of how mindfulness and how you connect the two of the mindfulness and the personal training, because we'll all heard about mindfulness, but then to put that with your training. So how does that work? How does that work?
Well, what I do is I really like to create a strong foundation, and part of that is building a strong connection with the mind and the body. So I always start out with some kind of breathing techniques, and then we move into a body scan. So we are connecting deeper with the body, and we're understanding how we're feeling on that day, aches and pains, and how we just feel in the environment. And then we move on to some mobility. So mobility is not just being flexible, but being strong in that movement as well. So we're strengthening the muscles and opening up the joints, so we've got that strong movement as well, and also muscle activation. So I think this is where a lot of people have been falling down, especially during lockdown. People have been exercising, so a lot of runners and cyclists, but they've also been getting injured. So we've seen a lot of shoulders, a lot of tight hips, and backs hurting, because you're not warming up properly, and within that warm up you need to kind of wake up those muscles. So I do muscle activation. So for example, making sure you're firing up those glute muscles, getting that butt working before you're doing squats or running or something like that, and a proper warm up and cool down with different types of stretches in, depending on what we're doing. And obviously the personal training involved as well. So I think because I've kind of created this concept because you see people doing mindfulness or mindfulness training, but a lot of it's around yoga or Pilates and things like that, which is great. But I love personal training as well. So I like to incorporate both of them. And I think that I don't know why we don't do it anyway. So why we do the mind there and the body there, because they're connected anyway. So creating a really strong foundation and a proper focus on what you're doing. You know, I know a lot of people stick headphones in, and that's okay, but you're not thinking about what you're doing, and not getting the most out of your workout and concentrating on the form. So that's really my focus.
Yeah, yes, it's true, because I would always put music on to pump me up if I was doing any form of exercise generally, but actually that can distract you from tuning in to the body and the mind at the same time, isn't it? So Yeah. And what got you, have you always been in the habit, shall we say, of exercise? What got you into this habit, shall we say, and therefore, and now a business?
Well, a couple of things. One, probably the main one was that when I was 17, I had a whiplash injury. But like when you're young, it kind of like, ow, that hurts a bit. And then you kind of brush it off and you just go on with what you're doing. And then a couple of years later, I'm like, why have I got headaches every day? Why is my neck hurting? It took me ages to realize what it was. And once I realized and started seeing, well, really it was an osteopath, because the physio is great, but like most people, you don't actually do what they're telling you to do. So I ended up paying money, going to an osteopath, and through working with them, they recommended building up the strength. So working with a trainer, because obviously the osteopath is great because they're manipulating you and you're easing off that muscle, but a week later I'll be back in just as much pain. So I started working with a personal trainer. You know, they gave me weights and I was like, can't lift that, my back hurts. No, they went, no, yes you can, you're stronger than you think you are. And it just went from there, building up the muscles in my core. So the core isn't just your abdominals, but basically from neck to bum. And so building up everything, building myself, making myself strong. And it was that really, working with a personal trainer, that got me strong. And also through that, your body starts changing as well. You see people pounding the treadmill and you're like, okay, you might shed a few pounds, but if you want proper body composition, that's a bonus. So that was a real bonus for me. So it really came from there. And also the fitness thing also started because in my 20s, this is about around the same time and probably slightly before, I said to my mum and my partner at the time, I was like, oh, I might run the London Marathon. And they just looked at me and I'm like, you, basically. I just did a little bit of dance here and there. And I was like, yeah, right, I'm going to do it. I was so stubborn. So because they said I couldn't do it, I started training for the London Marathon, and it kind of, the actual kind of exercise side of it came from there, and utilising the two, I just got into a bit of a passion for it really. So.
And did you do the London Marathon?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the same question soon. Yeah. So let me ask you, Helen, how did you then decide? So you've done the training, you had a whiplash and everything else, and I understand all that sort of journey. But then what was the combination between the two, mindfulness and then personal training? How and why did you come up with that idea? What led you to come up with the idea of like combining the two?
I think it's life really. I mean, I've been working out for quite a while in gyms, and you see injuries and lack of focus, but also like just in your own life. I find I'm quite a fast-paced person and I'm everything at 100 miles an hour, and then I'll be knocked out for a couple of weeks because I'm just like, oh, I'm just exhausted. Why do I feel so rubbish? And so then you take that, then you go back and you're thinking, oh God, I have to make up those 2 weeks I was out, and you're going again and then you get knocked out, and it kind of, you end up delaying your training because you're not building that foundation physically. And I came to realize that I wasn't building it mentally either. So I started with like great apps, like the Insight Timer app I use. I love that one. It's so good. And I started using that for meditation and breathing techniques and listening to some lovely guided meditations on there. There's a guy called David G. I love him and I follow him. I think he's such a lovely voice. He's so nice. So I always recommend him. And I started through that, and then realizing that the two are connected and how important that is, a general focus and building a strong foundation. I mean, my business isn't just about the meditation side and the mindfulness side. It isn't just about personal training. It's about the two. So, yeah.
So I'm fascinated about this because unlike Sue, who does a bit of dancing, and that's great.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's not that once I'm doing it, I enjoy it. I am an ex-sports person, exceedingly competitive, and I've gone to not being competitive at all. And it's had a different relationship with my sports, which I am still working on, shall we say. So it's weird, isn't it, how we're all back in the day when I was younger, I'd be like, yes, Helen, I'm there, I'm there, and because I've got that I had something in me that was different, that is not in me now. So I'm learning to, as you say, you've got to enjoy it, haven't you, Helen?
Yeah. And also when you start feeling better as well, like physically, it spurs you on. You know, I've got a client I've got one client who's not particularly well, and she's got aches and pains and things like that, and that's my biggest thing. And you'll probably see on my website about aches and pains, because you think, oh, I'm getting older, I've got these aches and pains. And like with lockdown, I'm a bit like, oh, my back's hurting a bit, because I'm sitting down more at the laptop, whereas I'm used to just being up and about, and that's what it is. Just most people have got tight hips from sitting down too much.
So something neither of you'll know, because me and Sue never spoke about this before either, is that a few years back, I was actually started to use a walking stick because I have arthritis in my hips, and the arthritis got so bad. We went to Disneyland in Florida, and I actually took a folding up walking stick so I could put it in my luggage, because I knew when I get there, I'd need a walking stick. You know, I didn't want to buy one there. I just sort of wanted to take one with me. And then something clicked in my head. You know, it was like, hang on, Dave, you're far too young to be walking around with a walking stick. And for me, whether I was young or not, it doesn't really matter, but I felt I was too young to use a walking stick, even though I needed it at some point. And I decided then I saw a TV program, and this is exactly what you were saying, Helen, around sometimes you're sitting down, and I felt that if I was sitting down, I was actually doing it better, if you like, because I was resting it. However, I saw this TV program, and there was a guy on there, and they'd done some tests with someone with arthritis, and they said that actually to move more was actually better for this guy. So I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. So a few years back now, I started the Couch to 5K. Walking, then running, walking and running, and I did the 5K over a period of time. But I won't mind telling you that the very first time I went out, I got to the end of my road, which is literally a few hundred yards. I got there and I had to come back because my hip was killing me. I was out of breath. I was completely, useless at running. And that was the very first little bit of the run of the Couch to 5K. Back, and I thought, no, I've got to do this. Got to get past that. And I did. I got past it. I kept running. I then done a 10K run, another 10K run, another 10K run. And last year I done, I don't know how many 10K runs, loads. And then I done the Cardiff Half Marathon. So not quite as good as you, Helen, but who knows? However, back in March, and that was last year, 2019, and I'm really, really fit and active and everything, and I kept that up. Then come March with the lockdown, and I spent the first couple of months in the garden, but not doing any running because I was really busy in the garden, and I didn't have, if you like, the time to go for a run as well. So what I did, I put the running on the back burner, and now I started about a month ago. I went out for a run, the very first run since March, really. And I found it really, really hard. In fact, again, I said to myself, right, I need to start all over again. My question to you, and it's quite a long story, I know, but my question to you, and I'm sure that's going to resonate with lots of our listeners who are in similar situations, So one thing about the arthritis, it did get better through the running. So using my muscles was better. It built the muscles around my hips and around my legs, so that was good. Yep. But my question to you is, have you seen other people do that? Would you recommend it to other people? Or would you recommend, actually, don't do that, Dave, that was a bit mental, get back to your walking stick? What would you say?
Oh, well, okay. I'm not a doctor. There you go, that's that said.
Let me give you advice from a doctor first, all right? So I did go to the doctors before all this journey. I went there with my walking stick, all right, because I was using it quite a lot at one point, especially in the cold weather. And the moment today is very frosty in South Wales, and it's very cold, and that's when it really plays up. And I went to the doctors, and I had my walking stick, and I said to him, look, I don't want to use this walking stick. This is not me. I'm in my very early 60s, and I don't want to use this. And he said, well, you're getting older. He said, what's the matter? I said, maybe buy a nice walking stick that, you feel quite good holding. He said,
by my tongue.
I went,
oh goodness,
that's not the advice I want. I didn't want that advice. What else can I do? And he went, well, you know, you're getting on in a few years, and it's like, you know, this is a natural progression as you get older. And I went, no, sorry, still not the answer I want. And that was it. And I went. So I looked for other advice, and then I saw it, and it was actually the two twins. You know, I don't know if you know the two twin doctors on the TV who do the programs quite a lot on the TV, and they do one does one thing, one does the other.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was the program that actually changed my life, because then I got to ditch that, do catch 5K, start running, get out there and do it. The advice from a doctor, even though you said, Helen, I'm not a doctor, I tell you, see the advice from a doctor?
I know, but I have to say that as well. But for nutrition, like we hear that as well, but then nutritionally as well, I mean, the types of food you eat can make a big difference, because some foods are inflammatory to not just you, because you've got arthritis, but to people in general in their bodies. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it with people, and I obviously experienced, I mean, mine was really bad. Well, I was, you know, in a lot of pain. But yeah, people having arthritis, increasing their mobility and strength in those joints and the muscles around, like you said, you built muscle around like your legs and your glutes, and doing that will help with strength and stability in the joints and all the ligaments and tendons as well. So you're actually building strength in the rest of the body to support the slightly weaker areas. I mean, as we get older, we are degenerating, but it doesn't have to be at the rate that, you know, you can try and do lots of things, and just staying still is not going to help. Definitely moving and strengthening your body is going to help. So
I think
you just find the thing that suits you. I think
you mentioned something important there, Helen. A lot of people forget. I mean, obviously I have been sporty over the years back in my day, but you know, we expect our bodies and our muscles to just go. And when we've got an injury or something, as you know, I came to you partly as well because I let's just call it whiplash, rather than me having to tell people that I fell on my head trying to do a handstand against the wall, because it sounds so much better than what I actually was doing on New Year's Eve, sober, I would like to point out, last year. But it really buggered up my neck, really, and couldn't move it. So, but we forget that, you know, muscles have got tendons, they've got cartilage, they've got all of these connectors that get shocked, get damaged as well, and they are it's those little bits that actually sometimes need the strengthening to help the muscle. It's not necessarily the muscle in itself, but it's all the little connectors that we don't really think about in our body that actually need that strengthening and that reconditioning, isn't it?
Yeah, you can get some really good physios as well, because obviously they're experts on you know, basically the whole skeletal system. They're really, really good. Like, you can get some really good ones who do personal training as well, and they can like fine tune those little areas that you need. So it depends on who you are and what you need, like finding the right person, because, you know, saying you're a personal trainer is pretty generic. So finding that right person for you and making sure they've got the experience, you know, because a young bodybuilder guy might not have the same experience as someone else, you know, or what their goal is to get big, get people big and strong, but not,
that's not for
which
everyone,
is perfectly fine. But yeah, I'm not sure that's what you want to.
No, I don't want to get, I've got used to being small. But bringing that mindfulness into it. I mean, the amount of times I've done training in the past, and when I say past, we're talking 20 plus years ago, when I was playing tennis, county level and different things, and table tennis, and we just crack on. We do our little warm-ups. We're younger, so we don't think warming up is necessarily as important, and that really does. I think the one thing I've learned, certainly as my years have passed, and that is the importance, although it seems boring, because it's at a slower pace and you're not getting that sweat up straight away. You think you should be going, right, that's it, I'm going to do exercise, boom, 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 and we go straight into it. And that's actually when we can cause more injuries. And at the moment, where you say a lot of people have had injuries in lockdown, whereas we're used to being generally active and then doing exercise, people are probably being generally sedative and then doing exercise. So you're going for that short burst, and that's also when you've not, you know, it's more now than ever, you've got to mindfully get into that place of going, okay, body, we need to wake you up first, don't we?
Yeah, just understanding that for you to have more progression, you know, to be able to progress in whatever you want to do, just warming up for 5-10 minutes, you know, is going to make a big difference. But also, I was going to say one thing we haven't spoken about with mindfulness is massive area stress reduction, which is one of not just for your mental health, but physical health as well. You know, taking your body, like I really like meditations that focus on the breath, and I used to do yoga, and I really liked that for breath focus as well, because concentrating on having a slower breath, like a deep belly breathing breath, takes you out of your fight or flight response and will bring you back into that normal rest and recovery rate. And that's really, really important. And also for a lot of women, we hold a lot of fat around our stomachs, and for those women who want to lose belly fat, some of the reason is because they're highly stressed, and cortisol will tend to sit around the stomach, and when you're stressed you release cortisol, stress hormone. So that's another thing.
It's a great combination of bringing that mind. I mean, I do chakra, I do chakra dancing sessions, and it's interesting because a group that I had the other month, the one thing they said, because there's no structure to it, it's a freestyle dance in theory, but what they had to do with the music was really connect mentally with their body and be in tune and listen to their body, because they were the ones that had to sort of say what was movement was okay to do. We do a lot of things where we're told this is, you know, in your yoga you've got a position, you've got structure, but actually they were like, it was like, this is not as it, you've just said it's freestyle dancing, but that's not as easy as it sounds, because I've really got to listen to my body, as into you're asking me, you know, to do what my body feels like, but to do that I've got to actually start listening to my body to say what's okay and what isn't okay. And it is that mindfulness allows us that space. I know when we did our session, we started with that breathing, with that meditation. It allows you to drop whatever else is going on at the door as well, so that it gets you slowly into that headspace of what it is that you're about to prepare your mind and body for, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Helen, tell us a little bit more about how you actually do this, because I'm really intrigued on how you mix the two together, especially with personal training. And I looked at your website earlier on, and it seems very much like you said earlier on about some people do yoga, Pilates with mindfulness as well. And I can understand that to a degree, because they're kind of slower, if you like, than some of what I perceive to be personal training. And looking at your website, there's, you know, ropes doing this kind of thing, and
it's one of the things,
you know,
that need changing as well, but that's part of the personal training section. So I do like the breathing techniques and the body scans in the beginning, like Sue says, to kind of settle everything down, get some de-stress in the beginning, and bringing that connection to the body and that awareness to the body and how you're feeling, and then the muscle activation and the warm up and the stretching. So you're creating that focus and sense of awareness slowly through that kind of warming up period, so that when you're doing the personal training session, you then have more of an understanding of your body and how it's moving and how it's feeling. And also during that warm up period, you'll get people that'll be like, oh, it feels a bit tight here today, or actually it's a bit sore here. So you can adjust for the session. Whereas if we just went into the session and just did a very quick warm up and off we went into personal training, I might miss that. And then I'll carry on doing whatever we're doing. And then at the end, they'll be like, oh, well, this is hurting, or that's hurting. Whereas in the beginning, you can kind of pick that up. But also with the muscle activation, like we were saying earlier, you're firing up specific muscles for the exercise ahead, so depending on what we're doing. But that's where it all comes into, like creating a focus for the training session, and also for your own goals as well, and also building that strong foundation. I know you can't build a strong foundation in one session, but that continuation of the process. So that's essentially where it comes in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I know we spoke very briefly about this earlier on regarding the music, and we were saying about, you know, some people listen to music while they're exercising, and some people, they feel pumped up by listening to the music. So would you recommend that people don't listen to music then? You know, say take it that they go to the gym, or they go running, or do whatever, you know, whatever kind of exercise they do. Would you recommend that people actually are more mindful about themselves and don't be distracted by the music?
It's not going to hurt not to listen to music for a while. I mean, if you go in and do your warm up and all your kind of muscle activation, but say you're going to go on the treadmill in the gym, if you just wanted to do that, to go in and do your warm up, do your muscle activation without music, so you're firing those things up, you're concentrating on the areas that you want to concentrate on, and then you can stick your headphones in and just go for a run then, because you can switch off. And sometimes, I mean, music does help. Sometimes it can help push you a bit further, and I'm not saying that I never train with music, because sometimes I do, but usually it's if I'm doing like interval training or something a bit more fast paced, and like body weight exercises rather than using weights. But if I'm using weights, I don't tend to always listen to music. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and stuff, but if you can kind of just be aware of what you're doing whilst you're listening to music as well. I mean, it depends on the person. It helps not to listen to music, but
it's got me thinking, actually, because something's just coming to my head, because music's really important to me. And my body, my emotions, everything connects when there's music on. But I've never been a gym person. How many times I'm one of those ones, I'm going to sign up, never go, or, you know, for a month and then that's it. But actually, you know, you go into a gym and if they've got music on, it's generally the pound wants to get you into it. Whereas you're not mentally, your body hasn't prepared for the tempo of that music yet. So it's just got me thinking, well, actually, so for the warm up, I want one style of music so that it's the same sort of tempo as to what I've got to get into. So for doing stretching, I don't want the dance music on straight away. I want a music, you know, it doesn't even have to have words, but something in the background that's going to help me get into that. Or I'm going to stretch, flow, that more, you know, fluid. Whereas then when your body's ready to sort of go more at it, you can up the tempo of the music to suit the body movement to some degree.
Yeah. And you can have it as a background music. It doesn't have to be something that you're actively listening to. But now, once you're aware of it, now you've already started thinking, okay, I'll focus on that a bit more. So you'll have your music in, but you'll be going, okay, you can concentrate on that a little bit. So
I'm just wondering about our listeners. You know, our podcast is all about habits, of course. So I'm wondering now about the habits that they have and whether they're going to change them now, having listened to your advice and conversations today, that maybe they'll start to think, oh, actually, I won't listen to music just while I'm warming up, or I listen to a different kind of music, and then maybe the dancier music or whatever, the heavier thing, when they're really
experiment with a few different things, see how you feel, see how it goes and how it affects your training.
I think the best thing to take from this, and I know when we worked and we did our session, and that is, you know, really prepare the mind, doing that sort of meditation, that body scan. You can find body scans on YouTube, on anywhere, you know, a mindfulness body scan. You can find them loads on YouTube in different places, but just to tune in with that body, because as you said, one day your session, you'll tune in and your shoulders might ache because of something you've been doing that week or what have you. And then another session you might do, by doing that mindfulness body scan and that breath work, you might think, oh, this week, oh, my hips are aching, because you've done something different that week. So it's really good to just not assume your body is going to be the same each week, and to tune into that body and give that body the space to talk to you, to say, this is actually what I need today.
Yeah, sometimes you can spend more time doing mobility on one area. The hips are quite a common area because they get quite tight, so that's quite a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we've got to round it up for today because we've done our usual bit of chat, and we're coming to the end of our podcast now. So, Helen, thanks very much for joining us today. It's been
thank you.
And I think it's give our listeners and ourselves definitely something to think about today. And the way that we would exercise. And if people do want to get in touch with you, of course, they could search for Mindful Personal Trainer on Google. Would they?
Yep, Mindful Personal Training. Yep, this website is mindfulpersonaltraining.com. Facebook and Instagram is Mindful Personal Training. So that's all good. If you search Helen Shewry, you'll probably find that as well. Oh. You have to spell my surname out though.
It's okay. Well, on the video part on YouTube, if anyone's on the podcast and wants the details, then pop over to the YouTube bit because there'll be a still at the end of this with all your details up there.
Okay, so. Thank you. Yeah, contact me and I can give you a little bit of advice as well. So no problem.
Oh, brilliant. And of course, listeners, don't forget to like us, subscribe to us, and keep coming back, listening to the podcast, watching us on YouTube. And we hope to see you again soon. Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Sue. Bye, David. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.